Imagine this. It's the dead of night on a fog-shrouded island off the coast of what we now call North Carolina. The year is 1587. A young woman, pale as moonlight, clutches her infant daughter to her chest, her eyes wide with a mix of terror and resolve. Around her, the flickering light of pine torches casts long shadows on weathered faces. English settlers, their clothes ragged from the Atlantic crossing, murmuring prayers in the chill wind. They've come to claim a new life in this untamed wilderness. But as the last boat slips away toward the open sea, a guttural chant rises from the dark woods beyond their palisade walls. Drums beat like a heartbeat, and eyes, unseen, ancient, watch from the trees. By dawn, the woman turns back to the shore, waving farewell to her husband, the colony's governor, who promises to return with supplies. He never does. And when help finally arrives 3 years later, the entire village, 115 souls, men, women, and children, has vanished without a trace. No bodies, no battle scars, no signs of struggle, just 2 words carved into a tree. Croatoan. What happened to them? This is the story of America's greatest unsolved mystery, the Lost Colony of Roanoke. A tale woven from ambition, betrayal, and secrets that still whisper through the oaks today. To understand the vanishing, you have to step back into the sweltering courts of Queen Elizabeth I's England, where the air hummed with the scent of intrigue and the promise of empire. It was the late 16th century, a time when Europe was gripped by the fever of exploration. Spain's galleons brimmed with gold from the New World, and England, ever the underdog, chafed at the bit. Enter Sir Walter Raleigh, the dashing courtier with a cloak that could douse a candle flame, or so the legend goes, and a mind sharp as a rapier. Knighted for his boldness, Raleigh dreamed of planting England's flag on American soil, not just for glory, but to strike its span's throat. In 1584, he dispatched 2 privateers, Philip Amadas and Arthur Barlow, to scout the Carolina coast. They returned with tales of a paradise, fertile lands teeming with deer, rivers thick with fish, and friendly natives who wore copper ornaments and offered pearls the size of acorns. Those friendly natives were the Secotan and Croatoan peoples, Algonquin-speaking tribes whose villages dotted the outer banks like beads on a necklace. Chief Wingina, later known as Pemisapen, welcomed the English with feasts of roasted venison and maize bread, but beneath the hospitality simmered suspicion. The scouts bartered for trinkets, axes, cloth, glass beads, and brought back 2 captives, Monteo, a Croatoan guide destined to become a linchpin in the drama, and Wanchisi, a warrior from Wingina's tribe whose distrust would fester into open hostility. Raleigh, dazzled, named the land Virginia in honor of the Virgin Queen and geared up for colonization. The first attempt, in 1585, was a ragtag force of 107 men under Sir Richard Grenville, Raleigh's cousin. They landed on Roanoke Island, a narrow strip of sand and marsh 12 miles long, vulnerable to storms, and encircled by treacherous shoals. Artist John White, a grandfatherly painter with a knack for watercolor portraits, chronicled their arrival. Sketches of thatched longhouses, canoes carved from cypress, and natives in deerskin cloaks adorned with shells. But paradise soured fast. Crops failed in the sandy soil. Wheat withered, barley turned to dust. The English, ill-prepared for the humid summers, clashed with the locals over food. Wanchisi fanned the flames of resentment, and by 1586, after skirmishes that left villages burning and English bellies empty, Grenville sailed home, leaving a skeleton garrison under Ralph Lane. Enter the crisis. Sir Francis Drake, the pirate hero, arrived off Roanoke that summer, his fleet laden with Spanish plunder. The garrison, starving and paranoid, begged passage back to England. Drake obliged, but a hurricane scattered his ships, and when supplies finally arrived on Roanoke weeks later, the fort stood empty, abandoned, with rusted cannons and overgrown gardens. Wingina's people, wary of these pale invaders who demanded tribute and desecrated sacred sites, plotted revenge. In a raid on Dasamun-Kepiuk, Wingina's capital, Lane's men slaughtered warriors and torched the village, killing the chief himself. It was a Pyrrhic victory. The English had made enemies of the very allies they needed. Raleigh, undeterred, pivoted to family. In 1587, he sponsored a second expedition, not soldiers, but settlers, farmers, craftsmen, and families, 115 in all, including women and children. This was to be a permanent plantation, a foothold for England's New World dream. John White, now grandfather to little Virginia Dare, the first English child born in America, led them. They arrived in July, the air thick with cicada song and the tang of salt marsh. White's daughter, Eleanor Dare, heavy with child, stepped ashore amid cheers. Manteo, the loyal Croatoan, was baptized and ennobled as Lord of Roanoke, a gesture of fragile alliance. But omens abounded. A lunar eclipse spooked the natives, and supplies dwindled faster than hoped. The settlers needed more: corn, nails, cloth. White, elected governor, reluctantly sailed for England in late August, promising a swift return. As his ship vanished into the haze, he glanced back at the dwindling figures on the beach: Eleanor cradling Virginia, Ananias Dare waving his hat, the palisade gates creaking shut against the unknown. England, meanwhile, had other priorities. The Spanish Armada loomed like a thunderhead. Raleigh's ships were commandeered for defense, and White languished in port, watching the horizon for a break. Storms battered the coasts, and when he finally slipped away in 1588, privateers seized his vessels. Another year passed in frustration. By 1590, with Elizabeth's blessing, White joined a relief fleet under Sir John White. Under a convoy led by John White himself, but delayed by yet more raids on Spanish shipping. They made landfall on Roanoke in August 1590, 5 days after Virginia's third birthday would have been. The sight that greeted them was eerie. The island silent, save for the lap of waves and the cry of gulls. Sailing toward the old settlement, they spotted smoke curling from the woods. A fire, perhaps. But as they beached and pushed inland, dread settled. The houses stood repaired, not ruined, roofs thatched anew, palisades mended with fresh timber, yet no voices answered their calls. Inside the dwellings, chests overturned, but neatly so, iron tools stacked as if for travel. A small lead chest with White's own initials, containing seeds and a few letters. One note, dated 1588, spoke of distress but hope. They'd moved 50 miles inland to the Chesapeake for better land, but a supply ship had wrecked, stranding them. Then, the tree, a tall oak near the waterfront, its bark freshly carved with Croatoan in Roman letters, 3 feet high. Nearby, another post bore CRO, unfinished, as if interrupted. No cross, the prearranged signal for distress. White took it as a sign. The colony had relocated to Croatoan Island, 50 miles south, Manteo's homeland, where alliances held. But gales howled in, forcing the fleet to sea before they could search. White never returned. Old age and poverty claimed him in England around 1593, his last sketches haunting the walls of his lodging. What befell those 115 souls? Theories abound, each more tantalizing than the last. The simplest, assimilation. Drought records from tree rings show 1587 to 1589 as parched years. Famine gripped the land. The Croatoan, under Manteo's kin, might have offered refuge, intermarrying with the starving English. Genetic echoes persist. Modern Lumbee tribe members in North Carolina claim descent, their fair features and family names, like Dare, fueling speculation. In 2015, archaeologists unearthed English pottery and a 16th century gold ring on Hatteras Island, Old Croatoan, hinting at just such a merger. Imagine Eleanor Dare, widowed perhaps, teaching her daughter to weave baskets from sweetgrass. Virginia growing up bilingual, her blonde curls braided with feathers, bridging two worlds until the bloodlines blurred. But darker shadows lurk. Spanish spies reported rumors of a massacre. Wingina's vengeful kin, or rival tribes like the Powhatan, ambushing the weakened group during their trek. Captain Fernando de Quiros wrote in 1590 of Christians slaughtered by natives near the Chesapeake. Could it be them? No graves, though. The soil swallows secrets. Or betrayal from within. Wanchisi, released earlier, might have rallied warriors for a midnight strike, dragging the colonists into the sea or the swamps, their screams lost to the wind. Then there's the wilder edge, curses and anomalies. Some whisper of the Gray Man, a spectral guardian of the banks, who lures ships to doom, but extended to settlers. More grounded, disease. Smallpox, carried unwittingly by the English, could have wiped them out, bodies buried hastily in unmarked pits. Yet White found no such signs. In 2009, a map fragment from White's collection revealed a hidden fort symbol near the Roanoke River. Excavations there yielded European artifacts, suggesting a failed inland move thwarted by hostile terrain or attack. Fast forward to the 19th century, when Paul Green's outdoor drama The Lost Colony debuted on Roanoke, drawing crowds to reenact the mystery under starlit skies. But real breakthroughs came in the 20th. 1937 digs unearthed a stone inscribed EVM, Eleanor White Dare, perhaps? Though carbon dating later debunked it as a hoax. The 21st century brings DNA. Projects like the Lost Colony DNA study compare modern descendants to White family lines, with intriguing matches in the Melungeon communities of Appalachia, mixed-race groups long rumored to carry English blood. Yet the pull of the unknown endures. In 2023, first Broad River expeditions found a rifle part from the 1580s on a Carolina dig site, etched with a symbol matching White's sketches. Was it a relic from a desperate flight inland? Climate data now paints a vivid picture. The Little Ice Age crept in, freezing harbors and starving villages. The colonists, per White's letters, built a strong buoy on the island, but hunger gnawed. One letter, faded but legible, mentions diverse salvages, bringing food laced with suspicion. Poison? Sabotage? Picture the final days. Ananias Dare, carpenter by trade, hammering reinforcements as storms lash the thatch. Eleanor, ever practical, rations cornmeal, telling stories of Cornish moors to soothe the children. Virginia, now a toddler with sea-blue eyes, toddles toward the palisade, pointing at shadows that might be deer or demons. Manteo arrives with venison, his face painted ochre, speaking in halting English of safe havens to the south. A vote. Stay or go? They choose Croatoan, etching the name as beacon. The trek, women carrying babes, men hauling carts through mosquito swarms, ends in uneasy welcome. Weddings seal pacts. English brides in homespun to Croatoan braves, songs blending lute and rattle. Years pass. Virginia marries a chief's son, her children warriors who fight the Jamestown settlers in 1607, guarding ancestral secrets. Their descendants scatter, some to the Lumbee, blending with Siouan tribes, others west to the mountains, becoming the red bones of legend, fair-skinned, blue-eyed folk shunned as other. Whispers reach John Smith. We know your people. They dwell among us, changed. Or perhaps not. Maybe the sea claimed them. A rogue wave in a midnight evacuation. Hulls splintering on the Diamond Shoals, the graveyard of the Atlantic. White's own ship nearly met that fate. Survivors washed ashore, absorbed by tribes, their language fading like footprints in sand.
This isn't just history. It's a mirror to America's soul. The collision of worlds, the cost of conquest, the resilience of the forgotten. Raleigh tried again in 1603, but the flame dimmed. Jamestown rose in 1607, built on Roanoke's ashes, its founders toasting ghosts they never knew. Today, on Roanoke Island, the air still hums with questions. Tourists trace the carved tree's replica, pondering, did they thrive in exile, their blood in our veins? Or perish in silence, a cautionary tale? The truth? It eludes us, as it did White, staring at that empty shore. But in the rustle of live oaks, you can almost hear them, laughing, weeping, living on the edge of what might have been. And if you listen close on a foggy night, perhaps Virginia Dare herself whispers the answer, carried on the wind from Croatoan.